Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tourism Hub podcast. This is a third installment of the Tourism Hub podcast. Thank you for joining us. Give us a little hello. Where are you coming in from? We are so grateful that you could be with us on this live broadcast and live version of the Tourism Hub podcast. It is tourism because we talk all things business, the business of tourism, to inspire and to connect and empower the entrepreneurs and the experience makers of this wonderful industry of ours. Now, today I have a very, very special guest. He's the first of his kind on the Tourism Hub podcast. And as I introduce him and as we go along in the conversation, we are live, we are connected. Please share with us, ask us questions, and certainly get involved in the conversation. And to anyone that's also watching the replay, please still don't hesitate to reach out and connect with us. But who I'm about to introduce you to, he comes from a different niche part of the tourism industry. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Nayaz Noor from 39 Degrees South. Hello, Nayaz. Welcome to the Tourism Hub
Thank
podcast.
you. Thank you so much, Despina. It's a privilege to be here with you.
It's so lovely to have you. And to give everybody a backstory of how I first met Nayaz, we was actually on
Mhm.
the other side of the world. So although both Victorian businesses, I was really leading the way with global ballooning at the time, entering into a new market on a Victoria government-led mission to India. So it was my first time to India. It was our first Indian immersion experience. And this is where I met this lovely gentleman. So Nayaz, at the time, you were with Sophia Tours.
That's
Before
right.
that came into 39 Degrees South. But to give everybody a little bit of context of what an inbound tour operator is and how that makes it different to a tour operator, which we'd usually associate with a small tourism business or large tourism business. So give us a little context about what is an inbound tour operator, otherwise known as an ITO.
Sure. Uh, Before I came to Australia, I was a tour operator myself. I worked for travel agencies. I worked for airline companies, large wholesale companies. So, as a tour operator, B2B or B2C, you're dealing with either the customer directly or you're dealing with travel agencies to whom you're going to sell your product, which made it much easier because all we needed to do as a tour operator was to have one contact. So if as a tour operator based in, say, Spain, I'm selling Australia, all the Spanish operator needed to do was just send one email to somebody like me, who is an ITO in Australia. Hey, I have 10 people coming to Australia. This is what I need. These are the services, blah, blah, blah. It's one contact. The ITO is one contact for the tour operator or the travel agency overseas. And we, as ITOs, who have all these suppliers, we have guides, we have hoteliers, we have event companies, venues, restaurants, the attraction companies, all of them are our suppliers. So we discuss with them, we put together pricing, the itinerary, and send it as one document to the overseas wholesaler, tour operator, or travel agency, who in turn sells it to their client. So that's the difference. So there are different layers. So ITO would probably be the first point of contact for a tour operator overseas. And we in turn will contact our suppliers, attractions. They are the suppliers for us. But as an inbound operator, we have the wholesaler, which is one level below. Then you have the travel agent, and then you have the client. So it's layered.
And to give so with an inbound tour operator, you are intrinsically involved in dealing with trade, and you are the expert person and organization in in the country of where the overseas travel agent or wholesaler is sending visitors to. So this gives you have a great business B2B relationship with these in destination organizations and businesses that look to you for recommendations and to do the full kit and caboodle for a client's itinerary and trip when they visit Australia. Now, when you
Absolutely.
started at the night, now you were saying you were a tour operator first. So, as a supplier, as a tour operator first. So, say for, I'll give ballooning as an example. So, as a hot air balloon
Right.
operator, we distribute our services through a wholesaler, through a travel agent, but we also have great relationships with the likes of Nayaz, who can embed itineraries, particularly if for the right type of client, those types of experiences. What was it for you that led you from being a tour operator and working? Where was it back home? Overseas, that was not in Australia, where you had your tour operation experience in, Nayas?
No, it wasn't. In fact, it was the first time in Australia when I moved here in 2013 that I became an inbound tour operator. All my life, I've been selling outbound tours as a wholesaler, as a travel agent. So it was a completely different thing that I was doing when I moved to Australia, being an inbound tour operator.
Yes.
And then I realized difficult the job is of an inbound tour operator. The tour operator sitting overseas, all she needs to do is send one email. But when we get that email, we know what we need to do. We contact the hotels, the attractions, the guides, the restaurants, the coach companies, gather all this information, put it together, and then send it out to the travel agent. So there's a lot more work involved as an ITO than for a tour operator.
Oh, absolutely. So when we met, you hadn't it was along that you when we first met on that India trade mission, it w it wasn't that long that you had arrived in Australia. Is that right? Because that was
It
around that
it
time.
was it was just 2014. It was March.
Yes.
We came into Australia in 2013, and 2014 was the Victoria Government of Victoria India mission, if you recall.
Yes.
And tourism was one of the delegations, and I was the only ITO in that delegation, strangely. And that's when we met.
Yes. Because it was I remember the delegation was tourism, it was education, and there was a third one because it was quite a
I think
significant
that
big
was,
trade mission.
yeah,
And
health and
how lucky for me, I got to meet you and hang out with you, in India. So tell me, so what led you to come and live in Australia and start your own business straight off the bat as an inbound tour operator? Take me back to that. That's big, some big
long
moves
story.
there.
It's a very
Yeah.
long story. When I started working, I was actually first selling weighing scales in India. Can you believe it? My job was to go door to
Weighing
door, sell
scales,
weighing
like
machines,
weighing yeah, right.
weighing scales. Yeah, once
Yeah.
roadway bridges, railway bridges, postal weighing machines, industrial weighing scales. I did that for some time, and then I jumped into business with a friend. That didn't work out very well, and I said, I need to do something totally different. And I walked into this travel agency in Hyderabad. And the moment I walked in, I sort of surprised that they had no product to sell, that there was nothing tangible that I could see that you could sell. So I really wondered what the travel agency actually did for some time. Then I walked out with a job, and that's how I got into the business of selling travel. I did that for a few years in India. I moved to the Middle East, Sultanate of Oman, for a couple of years. Came back to India, Pan American Airlines. I think the biggest move we made was when we moved to the United States. This was in 1990. So Suchi and I, we spent 15 years in the US with tour operators, travel agencies, and then we moved back to India for a few years. And that's when I started Safi Tours as an outbound B2B wholesale tour operator. So that was the journey from India to USA and back to India. But
And
having
this was with
lived
American
overseas,
Airlines, you said. Is that what took you to America? American Airlines is who you were working with at that time?
now I worked for Pan American Airlines for some time, but that was in
Yep.
India.
Uh-huh.
That didn't
Yep.
take me to the USA. I think
Okay.
what I always dreamed that I wanted to live in the United States when I was in college. I grew up in Chennai. The old name is Madras. So we would spend time going to the United States consulate. Those days, you can just walk in, go into their foyer, their library, read a book, watch a movie. That became a meeting point for friends. Oh, where do we meet? Let's meet at the U.S. consulate. Dream of going to the U.S. there, even when I was growing up.
And then coming back, so you started Sophia Tours, because that's, I guess, uh, what was some key in that experience of going to America? Is that so you did that with your wife at the time, and you've got two sons? Was that something that you did together with
When
your
we moved
family,
to
or
the
is this a
U.S.,
single Nayaz?
no, it was just Suchi and myself that we moved to the US. We had no children at that time, so it was much easier to move. The difficult part was moving back to India from the US with two boys. And a more difficult challenge was moving to Australia. But that was a choice I wanted to make, and I made. And we decided to move to Australia in 2013. That's when I started Safi Tours here in Australia in 2013. But that's the challenge that I'll talk to you a little bit more about.
Yes. And talking about that challenge, I mean, that's like making that big life decision again for anyone that might be listening that is facing any type of similar crossroad of making a big decision. Is that something that what was it in the end that you had the courage to do that again, to leave your family home again for the second time? That you said that was that was a really difficult decision this time around because you have a family to come to Australia. What was it? Was it was it what was it that in the end gave you that courage to go for it again and move to Australia, that propelled you to do that?
I think after spending about 15 years in the US, we got used to the working style of the Western world. It's very different from how one works in India. And you would have seen when you went on these missions as well. India is very different. It's a great country to uh, visit. But somehow we lost that connection when we came back to India after 15 years in the US. And it was a tough challenge for us. We had some personal issues which we were trying to resolve. But at the same time, I said, I need to give my children a better opportunity. And it was either going back to the US or trying something different. And I said, why not try something different? I had never been to Australia. I said, let me make a visit. And I did. I think this was 2009 or 2010. I fell in love with Melbourne. I said, this is where we're going to live, and this is where we're going to die.
It's I can really relate, and I think this is why when I India was it was my first time to India, and I was there. I had been on many trade missions and travel missions in the Western world, on Western, US, New Zealand, UK. We did that trip a lot, but India was on another level of just immersing myself in there. But I did have a real connection to India and the Indian people. I think possibly because of our traditions and my own background. But what the story you share is very similar to my own, of my own parents making that decision. They left and then had to make that call to leave again their home country of Greece, and making that call. And it's interesting that you say that, although it was easier in the beginning because there was no family, it sounds like it's because of family and that giving a greater opportunity, which I'm always grateful for my parents, that I look back and go, oh, and for my own children, they would never have the opportunities that they had you not been that brave to say, you know what, we regretted coming back and we're leaving again. And
Yeah,
do that again.
it is a
Yeah.
huge challenge. So I think having moved from India to USA to India, I said, okay, let's do this one more time, and this time for good.
Yes.
So I said, let's move to Australia. Uh, Suchi loved the place as well. My boys love it. And
Yes.
it was indeed a challenge initially when we moved here. When we moved here, we actually just knew two people in the whole of this country. So
Yes.
that was a bit daunting for us, but we said we'll do it. It was also very difficult to leave behind a flourishing business in Hyderabad. Safir Tours was doing well. We focused on niche destinations like Israel, Jordan, Greece, Turkey, Morocco, and Egypt. In early 2000, 2004, 2005, not many people had visited those countries. We did very well. So to close down a business that was doing well, move to a different continent to start a completely new business was indeed a challenge. And when we moved here in January 2013, we did run into some challenges in terms of bureaucracy. We did have to take a travel agency license at that time, which no longer exists in the state of Victoria. We also had to go through the process of the Travel Compensation Fund, which was again disbanded that very same year. So all these challenges were there when we first moved in, and we had no business for the first 3 months, and that was, I think, the biggest challenge we faced.
But I can see that your experience, you've had experience in starting and running your own business, but now it's certainly having the skill behind you to know how to make a business work. And so it sounds like what you've done, you had a successful outbound tour operation that worked more in as a wholesaler. Was that how you would describe Sophia Tours when it was in India? When you would,
Yes,
yeah, as a
a B2B
wholesale
wholesaler.
business, so that
Yeah,
means you would trade through retail travel agents to sell your packaged
exactly,
tours.
exactly,
And I think that's clever that when you've come back, you flipped that, and you reimagined Sophia Tours to be an inbound tour operator, giving helping trade overseas sell Australia.
exactly. Because as a B2B wholesaler, my job was to go and meet travel agents in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai. That's what I did. And I made hundreds of friends. And so when I moved here, obviously, I relied on those travel agent contacts that I had built up to help me kickstart my business. But sometimes that can also be a challenge because people have established relationships. Uh, and I would always tell my travel agent friends, even my best friends who are travel agents, if you already have a relationship going with an ITO, don't disrupt it just because I'm a good friend of yours. Let that continue. But just remember, I'm always there for you.
What a great omen for any relationship, isn't it? And I certainly watched you in admiration, knowing that you were the only ITO at that mission. Um, just the way you can really, yeah, the way you really handle and nurture relationships is outstanding. I can see that how it didn't take you too long to build a successful inbound tour operation business. But going back to these challenges, and I guess, a lot of people are experiencing challenge at the moment.
True.
Going back to that one that you're saying it was very challenging, what were some of the things that helped you out of that? That you come to a new country, you know two people, you're starting a business, you have a family to support. What was, what is it within Nayaz that really can overcome these challenges when you're faced with, when you seem to be faced with back-to-back challenges that are coming at you?
I think it's my my positive outlook towards things. I'm very determined. I When I want to do something, I give all my heart. I put my heart into it, and I want to see the end of it. So I said, okay, it's okay if we don't get the business today, but we're going to get it tomorrow. And I work towards it, uh, and I persevere. I think that is the key to it. Perseverance is important, and follow through with what you want to do. And that's what kept us going. And when we, it's very strange that the first piece of business that we got as an ITO was from an Indian in Adelaide, whose parents were visiting Australia for the first time. And I knew her dad and mom, and she said, "Can you do it?" I said, "Of course we can do it. That's what we are here for." And
Yeah.
so it was a domestic piece of business, which, of course, visit friends and relatives. That was the first piece of business. And we said, "Oh, wow, this is great. We actually made a few $100s and we can actually buy a table now."
uh,
So
uh, with even with your product knowledge, because I mean you visited Australia once before you decided to make this your forever home. Now you've got a business selling Australia with a, just your like accelerating your product knowledge and the region. How did you go with that, with really starting the process of doing your own packaging of a vast country with so much to offer by way of destination experiences?
Despite, I always believe that if I have to sell something, I need to see it, I need to experience it, I need to know it. And and this is how Suchi and I have been doing things. A few years ago, about 5 years ago, we wanted to sell the Uluru. And we approached NT Tourism and said, "Hey, look, we are here. We want to push your product." Uh, of course, they didn't know too much about who we are, who we were, and they said, "Okay, we'll help you." But things didn't work out very well at that time. So we actually spent our own money flying down to Alice Springs, Uluru. We took the tours. We wanted to see the logistics of how tours are being operated in the NT. And that actually gave us the knowledge. And we did that not just with Uluru and Alice Springs. We did that with Gan. We did that with various cities in Australia. There's so much to see. It's impossible to see all these places. But one by one, we do it, we learn it, and then we sell it.
Yes. And is Suchi, has this been something, have you been has your wife been in the business with you
Uh,
these years?
Absolutely. That's how we first met, incidentally. She was with,
Yeah.
I think, British Airways or TWA at that time. And yes, she was mostly in the corporate side of business in the US. And when we moved to Hyderabad, she joined me in Safi Tours. And without her support here, 39 degrees south wouldn't exist. So yes, she is an absolute part of the business.
Love it. I can't wait to meet her one of these days. When we can get out again, we'll have to get together in real life, in IRL. So tell me, so you've gone from Sophia Tours and I saw you do this amazing rebrand and you changed your name, and you just before we went live on the show, you had a great you told me where Sophia Tours the name came from. Tell me a little bit about that, and then tell me how you and Suchi moved to 39 degrees south, because you went through a whole revamp of your name and your business and your markets
Mhm.
well before there was this overused word of pivoting or having to be forced to change in your market. So tell us a little bit about that, and then we can talk about what was to come on after deciding that you needed to change and move on now from this brand that, again, you've established over quite some time.
Safir is not only an Arabic word, which means ambassador. Safir is also a Swahili word, which means traveler. So I thought it very apt to
Yeah, I
start
love
the
that.
company as Safir Tours in India. And, before we left India in 2013, the Tourism Australia missions used to take place in India, the India Travel Mission, as we call it. And 2009 or 2010 and 2011, we attended those missions. And we met all these Australian suppliers every year. And I remember telling a few of them, and I also as a buyer, right? And they were selling Australian products to us. And I remember telling a few of them, one day I want to sit on the other side of the table. And I know that a few of them came back to me in recent years and said, do you remember saying this a few years ago when you were in India? I said, yes, of course. And here you are, a seller. So I think I'm one of those few buyers, or maybe one of two, who became a seller.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was very different. And so keeping that name, Safi Tours, was important for us to start with, because people knew Safi Tours. The Australian suppliers knew Safi Tours. So it was easy to connect right away and tell them, look, we are here, and now we want to be an ITO. So that's how we kept Safi Tours.
And then was it last year that you moved from Sophia Tours to 39 degrees south?
Actually, it was just this February. It was,
Really? It was even sooner. Oh,
it was.
wow.
Uh,
Okay,
India,
so
India
you've
was
been working in the Indian trade up until now, though, right? With Sophia Tours, and I know a lot of work and a lot of the next emerging market, and hence why the recent trade mission was to embed these relationships with Indian trade that we went on this delegation. Which I'm curious as well, is how how a new business, because these things are quite difficult to get into and be accepted to. So I think you have a knack for your perseverance, even in that mission that we came to, like to be, before we move on to anything else, I'm just curious about that, how you got yourself onto that trade mission, because I've applied for many of these myself, and it's not easy.
look, it was the Victorian government who sponsored me to settle down in Australia. They are the ones who sponsored my business migrant visa. So there was a lot of planning that I needed to do even before I moved here. I had to give them a business plan, what I'm going to do for Tourism Australia. Where do I see the business going from 2013 to 2020? All these projections helped me get the visa. That mission was critical in the sense that for me, I knew that the government was pretty much going to take care of most of the expenses. And 2015 was the World Cup, the Cricket World Cup taking place here. And 2014, if you recall, Despina, we had Brett Lee, who accompanied us. They were
Yes.
showcasing the World Cup. So that actually was a critical juncture in our business, because we met somebody in Mumbai, and that relationship eventually led us to bringing in almost 1,300 Indian visitors in 2015 for the World Cup. I think that was the largest number that an ITO had for the ICC World Cup in 2015. So it
Wow.
was an amazing moment for us at that moment in time.
Well, So it goes to show with perseverance and always working your relationship honestly, authentically, and with I guess with that perseverance that you have, the world, yeah, everything just came into place. You seized every opportunity that you had, and yeah, all the memories are coming back of how big the world. We got to hold the cup.
Yes,
I need to bring up some photos to share with everyone of that time, and just how mad the Indians are on cricket. So it was very timely
it
to
was. Yeah.
launch the business at that time. So going
But
back
coming back
to
to the
now,
transition, your
yeah,
question,
to the transition of coming back now to changing from core market of India and then changing your business to now 39 degrees south.
so what we realized from 2015, 16, 17 was although the numbers from India were growing double digit growth, it was the fastest growing market. We realized that there's going to be more and more competition. More people will get into the business. So we started focusing on niche itineraries, niche products, trying to separate ourselves from the rest. So, how can we uh, present ourselves differently? What can we project? What can we sell that others are not selling? And we realized that perhaps in time, our Indian market business may come down. And so we started exploring and we said, okay, we spent 15 years in the US. Let's take advantage of that. We work with American clients. We know what they want. We know how to deal with them. And Suchi and I, we explored the US market, but we said the name Safi Tours doesn't seem to be remembered, doesn't seem to ring a bell. Most of the time, people forget to pronounce it or what it is. So we said, let's think of rebranding. So this rebranding thought came to us in 2018, but for some reason we kept putting it off. And I said, we need to do it. And we started actually 2019 November. Uh, we thought of this name, 39 degrees south, because Victoria is in 39 degrees south latitude. We said it's an easy to remember name. Let's rebrand. So we started working on the website, launched it, I think, late February. And then you know what happened in March. So here we are.
So let's talk about what happened in March. Yeah. So now, I mean, we as a so I as a supplier and dealing with heavily international markets. So at Global Ballooning, we had a large portion of our business, more than half was the China market. So we got hit pretty hard
Well,
early in March. And what I'm interested in speaking with you when 100%, so many businesses have still got like a little window of other markets. But when your business is 100% reliant on international visitation and then no risk management plan could foresee a
right.
pandemic that would shut our trade and our industry the way that it has. So tell me about that, how that has impacted you for one, how you're managing things at the moment with with everything kind of on pause or on hold, and how you're going with that and what are you looking forward to? So if you're just yeah, how are you handling things with that in your business right now after the relaunch? And what are some things that you're learning along the way that you're looking forward to as we come out of this?
Sure. The seriousness of the pandemic hit us on the 15th of March. I think that was the evening our Prime Minister made the statement that anybody entering Australia from midnight 15th of March would have to quarantine themselves for 2 weeks. Suchi and I were on that day in Cairns, and we had a group from the United States in Queenstown, New Zealand, and they were to arrive into Melbourne on the 16th of March, just the next day. So 15th of March, I can never forget this ever in my life. It was a total turning point for us. I had to call the agent in Queenstown. I said, look, this is the situation. Do not come, because if you do, you're stuck for 14 days. We don't want that to happen. They took my advice, and it took them a couple of days to get back to the United States. But the scary part was uh, they actually went back to the US, and I think one or two of them contracted the COVID-19 as well. So that was a little scary. And then we knew that this whole situation is going to change. And it changed so drastically. We're still sitting here now, it's almost September, and we don't see the end of the tunnel. But we believe, uh, I personally think that 2021 is going to be a very difficult year for tourism. So I said, what do I need to do now to look, we have to get through this next 1 year. How can I reskill or do something different during this time? And so I decided to enroll in Deakin University. It, I said I needed to do something different, something that's going to take me out of my comfort zone. I wanted to challenge myself. And I said, what is it that I can do? What is it that I can learn? And hopefully give back to the industry in some form or the other. And that's why I decided on this cybersecurity course.
And that's what had me calling you straight away and saying, Naya, it's just we need this type of leadership right now. We need this type of mindset and thinking to inspire the industry that is feeling really stuck and seeing no light at the moment, because this is not just 6 week in lockdown stage 4 and then everything's going to go back to normal. It's long term, as you say, for international and domestic. We can't even go 5 kilometers beyond our own houses at the moment. So it is. So I think what you've done is extraordinary, and it led us to even connect in this way, to know, because I've certainly been on the receiving end of some significant hacking and cybersecurity, fraudulent activity personally of recently, and it is something we don't speak enough about. There's not enough education around it, and as we were talking the other day, it's happened. It's rife in many different ways, from people calling you over the phone to the emails that could come through, and really it's beyond this is, I am a prince from Nigeria and you have I want to give you $25 million, give me your bank account. These dodgy, this is sophisticated stuff that could come in and really turn your life around. So when you thought of putting yourself in this is real outside of your comfort zone, what are some of the things that have opened up in this? So you're in this course now of doing cybersecurity. What are some things that have opened your eyes to the world of what we can leave as small businesses now, as small businesses and as large organizations? And we hear a lot in the media too of just how, from a national security point of view, of how that the vulnerability of what can happen. What are some of the key things that you've learnt that maybe none of us that we need to know and be aware of, outside of changing your Facebook password regularly?
Look, we in the industry, whether we are a hotelier or a attraction company or a restaurant, we are dealing with personal information of clients. We are dealing with credit card information, dates of birth, and things like that. And these kind of things are being very freely communicated over email, which is easily hacked. We don't realize it. If we have not been hacked, we're all very lucky. The question of if, it's just a question of when. And this is going to happen. We just don't know when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And not many of us realize that. So I think that is something that I realized while doing this course, that we've been lucky so far. We've not been hacked. There's ransomware and so many other kinds of malware that's whether it's phone scams or SMS scams. I think I put up something yesterday on the web page about smishing, and I get two
Mm.
or three every day. SMSs that I've received from people I don't know. It's just a number. So hopefully, the knowledge that I gain from this course, I can try to help the industry, make them aware a little bit more about what they need to do in terms of protecting their data, because that is going to be the biggest thing for the future. Protection of personal information.
Protection of personal information. That's right. It's not just about business, is it? And certainly what
Yeah.
I've experienced firsthand, it was my personal account that was compromised, that then led to opportunities for these types of people to do that. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. So what are some key things you've learnt so far in terms of, like, what would be some advice you would give around the topic of cybersecurity? And you were mentioning the other day, I had someone even just over the phone call and and tell me that they were from Telstra, and it was clearly
Mm-hmm.
I had to and I must say, like, now that I've been on the receiving end and the fraudulent activity, went into the thousands of dollars that I'm still trying, getting to the bottom of. But what is interesting now, everything I see is heightened, and I don't trust anything. So even a friend sent me an attachment on a Facebook
Yeah.
Messenger the other day, and I texted her to see that it was her. Did you just send me an attachment? Like, I can't trust even opening things that are legitimate from friends. What are some things that you think, simple things that people can do today to protect themselves, and their security online?
Sure. Look, while I'm not an expert on cybersecurity yet, I will get there one
Yeah.
day, I promise.
Yes.
Simple things, passwords, make them complicated. There's software online that you can use like LastPass, where you have a single password which is secure for all your websites and all your appliances that you use. Uh, Two-factor authentication. People use plugins to log in. Sometimes they need to have a password. They need to have a PIN code. These are two-factor authentications, as they call themselves. But don't use the same password for 4 or 5 different websites, or say Amazon.com or Kohl's.com and Woolworths. Don't use the same password. Make it complicated. Make it long, at least 8 to 12 alphanumerical digits with some special characters. Uh, Make sure when you're using your credit card, be careful where you use it and how you use it. Be aware. That's what we tell every Australian supplier that goes to India as well. When we go on these missions, we tell them, just be aware. That's the most important thing. Uh, with when we travel, it's not just India, it's any country, I would say. Just be aware of what's going on around you. There are people waiting to take advantage, and we must be
Mm,
aware.
yes. With your even with your clients and the trade that kind of come to a halt at the moment, I guess even not just I mean, moving from the relationship in what you're doing to sustain that at the moment, what are also just from that experience of what you're having now that you've immersed yourself in something new that you could come out with the skill set, which I think is just I'm so inspired by that. How are you also keeping touch with your 39 Degrees South business at the moment? Because I know you're still very heavily involved in a lot of the education. I know you're still involved with ATech. How are you keeping that momentum going while you've gone while you're studying at the moment?
It's strange that today Suchi and I should have actually been in the United States. We had
Oh wow.
actually planned to exhibit at the ASTA Global Convention in Washington, D.C. Uh, Fortunately, we were not there because of the Republican National Congress convention taking place, but that's a different story.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we couldn't leave the country, so we had to cancel. But I am still exhibiting in a virtual trade event in the United States in November. We said, let's do it virtual, and they all decided to do it virtually. We are conducting some Zoom sessions with the Indian market as well. We have done that a few months ago, and it was specifically for a product like the GAN, for example, the iconic train journeys. I said, nobody's talking about those iconic train journeys. Why shouldn't I do it? And I've done it. Tourism Australia has helped me as well. Uh, we will continue to do that. And yes, we are actually, as we speak, Jasmina, thinking of a very novel idea for the travel business, which I cannot talk to you about right now.
Ooh. We'll have
Yes,
to do a
it's
backup interview with you.
hopefully in the next 4 weeks, we will be ready to launch that. It's going to be different. It may not be unique totally, but it will keep us busy and it will keep some of our suppliers busy. And that's what we want. Keep them busy and have something to do for ourselves.
Oh, good on you, Nayaz. You've got the entrepreneurial DNA in you. Yeah, that's what we need right now. Just keep thinking, but it's not just about thinking of the ideas. You're an action man, and that's what I love. And speaking of that, something else that I'm curious about, and as someone that's had exposure to many different small businesses in the tourism industry, you've had exposure to many different suppliers.
Yeah.
What are some key standout things that you look for in a supplier, or I like to call experience maker, to work with and recommend and sell with confidence?
I think the product that let's say it's an experience, it has to be genuine, and we need to market it to the right people. Uh, you can't sell a product to literally everybody in this world. There are going to be markets that will not visit certain places. Uh, I've been on some of these FEMILs with whether it's Tourism Western Australia or Tourism Victoria, and you meet different nationalities, travel agents from different parts of the world. And I discuss itineraries with them. What do the Japanese do? What do the Germans do? And they're all very different. So as
Mm.
an attraction or as an experience, uh, they need to understand which market they want to target and what is the experience that they're looking for, and tune that experience to that market. What I'm going to sell to the Indians is not going to be the same that I'm going to sell to the Canadians or the Americans. It's going to be different. The kind of restaurants that they might want to eat in will be different from what Chinese might want to eat in or the Germans might want to eat in. So these are small things that I'm sure everybody knows that, but it needs to be fine tuned.
Oh, it's a really good reminder for industry. It is. It's marketing 101, and for
Yeah,
businesses, know your customer. But in the
absolutely.
delivery of experience, it's we have to make that connection as well, because sometimes that can be forgotten in the way that we we develop product and experiences, that you have to tweak it to
Yeah,
also that
yeah,
ideal customer, particularly when we're working in the inbound and international space. So that's a really good point. And for suppliers that are working with trade to be able to talk, so if a supplier is talking to you, and you know, whether it's for to get into to build an Indian market or US, to be able to talk to you in the way that this is what we do specifically
yeah.
for the Indian market. So that's some good tips there. You've had a wealth of experience in business and in life, Nayaz. That one thing, I guess, that moment you've that can you remember a time of having like an aha moment, that it's that one feeling that led to a decision, to an action that has been the best thing to date, that you look back and you say, oh, you know, that was a critical moment in paving, you know, my way forward in your own success? Can you think of can you think of a time or a turning point? But it sounds like you've had many of those. But what's the one that really resonates with you?
Look, if you're looking at the last 7.5 years, I still think it's the India mission when
Mm.
we were in Mumbai. And actually, when I was on that mission with all of you, we actually had a group that was already booked for the World Cup final cricket match taking place in 2015. And when everybody started talking about cricket at the trade event where I met all these travel agents, I said, and I thought to myself, we already have a group booked without having to sell the ICC T20, the World Cup match. What am I doing with it? This is it. This is what we need to do. And my mind was working overtime right there, right then. And I called up Suchi and I said, you know what? Let's move forward with this. We came back to Melbourne and we started working on it, put things together, programs together, itineraries. We had the hotel rooms booked. And I think that was a turning point for Safi Tours for us in Australia. So that, I think, could be your aha moment for us. Yes, it was indeed
Oh,
a turning
I
point.
think your business has that pivotal that's taken you from, yeah, from starting out to this is
Yep.
now, yeah, you've gone to that next level and then continue on onto that path. I, in the beginning of launching your first business, because there's not only people at the moment that might be listening, or we're grateful to have viewing, that need to change not only their business, but perhaps looking to change careers. In the beginning, that what you know, when you decided to make that change to work for yourself, from selling the weighing scales to I want to start a business, what was there anything that was holding you back at that time?
Actually, the initial business that I went into before I even joined the trade was with a friend who was also selling weighing machines. So I think it was just an impulse. We said, you know what, we're tired of selling weighing machines. Why don't we do something together? We just jumped into it. We had no money, no resources, but we did it. Obviously, it failed because otherwise they would still be in that business. But what we learned from that was we need to know what we're selling, first of all. We need to
Mm.
know who we are going to sell it to. I mean, we're down to the basics of marketing the product itself, the 4 Ps, and then so that's when I got back to working for some people. But after we moved from the US to India, I couldn't work for anybody. I said, I need to do something on my own. And fortunately, uh, we did it. And you know what? It was a new product in a new destination. India was not ready for it. So we said, let's do it. So we educated travel agents on the product. Uh, I would actually walk into a travel agency, spread out a map of the world or that particular country, and talk to them of the itinerary, and that's how we would sell it. But I think in India it wasn't very difficult for us to do it. The bigger challenge was doing it here.
Mm. I think what I hear from that for you, it is being so confident in your decision that I I am not working for someone else ever
Yeah,
again. Like it wasn't there's when you've had that yeah, you had that experience that you got to that point where again it's always coming through you of the perseverance, but having that type of clarity, there's not much that can hold you back when you make that type of decision, when you say like, yeah, I'm almost unemployable
but
in a
you
good
know,
way, in a good
we are
way.
living in uncertain times right now, and I think we should all be ready to embrace what's coming ahead, be prepared, reskill ourselves, and see how we can. Everybody needs to survive. Today,
Yes,
it's a very difficult time for all of us. I know
yes,
travel agents in India who are now moving into businesses of food catering, uh, nurseries, and things like that. So
yes.
the times have changed, and I think
Time
those who can,
Yeah.
so
And
those
this
who
is
can
it. There
persevere.
are a lot of
Sorry,
people need to like what you've done with your study, or even foreseeing your change in markets from India to think, okay, let's start looking, even though it's still successful. And I think that is, if there's something that people can take away from our conversation, is what is your backup? What is your backup in your business, that if this was to be taken away from you, as
yeah.
many of us have experienced, what is it that you will be continually learning or doing or planning in your business, in your product, in your markets, in your skill set? Yeah, what's your backup? I think
I,
that would be a good risk management plan for everyone.
yeah, it is. It is very important that people uh, focus their resources in the right direction, and they need to do it now. The time is
Mm,
now. Every day
yeah,
is important, and I would
yeah.
urge people not to waste it. If you want to better your business, learn something, do something different, or you want to reskill, this is the time to do it.
This is the time to do it. It's actually, that's where the opportunity comes in, isn't it? Like you've
Yes.
had an interest in cybersecurity, but what a great time to go do a degree in it. You have to see from a positive outlook. Some of your mentors, or what's some of the best advice you've ever received, Nayaz?
I'm struggling with that, Despina.
Yeah.
uh,
Because you
I,
give such good advice.
I don't know. I mean, I've always done what I wanted to do, and fortunately for me, I've been supported by Suchi. So,
Yeah.
of course, we're not going to move continents anymore. So that's one piece of advice that I've been given. Uh, yeah. So I really just have been doing what I really wanted to do all my life.
Yeah. Which is excellent advice to impart on others. What are some personal habits, apart from your perseverance, your positive outlook, and your genuine mm, giving nature of always wanting to help others? What are some personal habits that you have that contribute to your success? What are some daily things that you do that makes you use the best of your time in your day to day work?
Okay, this is something that I learned when I used to sell weighing scales, weighing machines, and I still follow it today. I must write down what I'm going to do every day, either the previous night or the first thing in the morning. No matter how unimportant it is, even if it's just having to pay the telephone bill, I write it down. So I have this list and I see, okay, What is it that I must do? What is it that I should do? What is it that I can do if I find the time? So you prioritize those things and do it. But it's a habit that I've been doing it for many, many years now. So I even now stick to it. I cannot do without my notebook and my things to do.
Yeah.
And I also do my Sudoku every day to sharpen my mind.
No, really? A
Yeah,
daily Sudoku? Yeah.
absolutely.
Do
I
you do that
start the
with
day off with
Suchi?
that.
Is that do you fly solo with your Sudoku? Do you do that together?
Nah, Suchi hates numbers.
Yeah.
She does the words, I do the numbers.
Yeah, love it. An internet resource. What's an internet resource? Something that you can't live without that also contributes, whether it's time management or your learning, now with your studying. What's something that you can't live without that's made a big difference?
Uh, look, I try and keep up with what's going on around the world as well. I want to see what's happening in Asia. I want to see what's happening in the in the Western world. I want to know what's happening in Australia as well. So I read the news and I choose
Mm,
different websites for it, not just any particular one. This is just to keep aware of what's going on around. It's not a resource that would help me, but it also helps me in knowing what's happening around. For example, today we just learned that France has an exponential growth of COVID cases. So that is really surprising. So this was a country that was planning to open up as a bubble
mm.
with the Indian market. India was getting very excited that France is opening up, UK is opening up. So we need to know what's going on around us. So there's no one particular site, but I do read some articles from sometimes from the Harvard Business Review, which I subscribe to. I do watch some TED shows once in a while,
Mm.
but this is not something that I do every day. But yes, when
Yeah,
I want some
but you keep
inspiration,
taking.
I go for it.
Yeah,
Other
love
than
it.
that, there is a site that I like. It's called Radio Garden.
Radio
It's a
Garden.
yeah, it's a nice
Mm.
website for any radio station in the world. You can listen to
Ooh.
any kind of music.
Ah,
So once
nice.
in a while, I play around. I want to listen to some reggae music. There you go, Radio Garden.
Nice. Love it. So reggae, is that a fave? I love
Reggae or jazz, anything.
Yeah,
You can
nice, nice.
you can
We'll have
tune
to check
into
that out.
Johannesburg. You can tune into Chennai. You can tune into. I think
Oh,
we have one in Woolly Yarak as well in Yarra Valley.
really?
Yeah,
Local. There you
there's a local
go.
station there.
Cool. And a book. Do you enjoy reading? What's a significant book that
Uh,
you would recommend to anyone listening or watching?
yeah, right now it's all cybersecurity, but there was a
How
book that I did read that I once in a while I go back to reading some chapters. It's called How Will You Measure Your Life?
Ooh,
It's a book by Clayton Christensen, Karen Dillon. It's a very interesting book, and I think it's still relevant today. How will you measure your life? There you go.
beautiful. I will, and it's on audio. I love listening to books too. So there's a nice one to get into. How will you
Yeah,
measure your life? So how can we so we've got your website and we'll add more to that. How would you recommend people connect with you and learn more about you, Nayaz?
just call me.
How to call you.
Yeah,
We
oh
will
four
put
two
all
nine
your
nine
details
three
through
five zero
the
five six.
YouTube website. And I can see you've been sharing a lot of inspirational images from Australia.com lately. You are certainly missing your travel in our little tourism excellence group. Any parting word of advice, quotes, anything you'd like to end on to share with everyone, Nayaz? And there's your little. We need to do something about that. 39 degrees south. Is that your handle there?
It
We need
is.
to
It
go
is.
has some love on Insta. He shares such good stuff about Australia and beyond. So there's his Instagram page there.
Yeah, it's all
Any
Australian.
parting advice, inspiration, anything you'd like to leave us on today?
Well, I would like to just say that I think people shouldn't be afraid to push themselves. Uh, get out of your comfort zone and look for something that's going to challenge you physically or mentally, and just do it. You know, this is the time to do it.
This is the time to do it. Nayaz, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. I can't wait to share this on the Tourism Hub audio podcast and share it far and wide. I wish you all the best with your studies, with your business, with a new project that's coming out. Please share. We'd love to hear
Yeah,
more. Certainly, some key excellent nuggets and some really good stuff is really you've got a great life partner to do business with. I've taken that
yeah,
like to if with success, it's really good. I think whether it's your significant other or having going into business, having the right person that's next to you, you can really see that come through. You've been really good partners in life and in business through your journey, your perseverance, your ability to be curious, to always be learning something new. I'm really inspired by what you've done and how to use this time effectively. When you've said, okay, 15th of March, the world from was came from underneath us. What can we do now? I think that is just that is really um, yeah, that's really encouraging for anyone to take that on board to upskill in a completely new way, and seizing opportunities. That seeing an opportunity and taking some action towards it is I've some key things and many more. And planning your day, I like that. I like that planning your day out in a structure of what you must do, what you should
yeah.
do, and what you can do. I think that was really solid advice and things to share for people that may have lost a little bit of structure in their days at the moment. Even if you have work, I think if you're lacking some structure, and I know I spoke to one of my students the other day that just said, I really have no reason to get up at the moment. So if there's any other questions or comments, even if you're watching the replay or listening to the audio, please reach out. Please check out Nayaz's work on 39 Degrees South, and he's also on LinkedIn, and you'll find more information on this podcast on instituteofexcellence.com/podcast, and you'll see Nayaz there. Thank you so much, dear Nayaz.
Thank you, Despina. It's been a privilege being with you here today.
Likewise.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, everyone. And if you've found some inspiration, please tune in again next week. Saturdays at 2 o'clock is where we have these Tourism Hub Ignite Your Excellence podcasts. And until then, be well, be safe, be kind, and as always, be excellent, my friends, today and every single day. Goodbye for now.